In the realm of nightmare memoirs, where the line between the living and the dead blurs, there exists a tale that will test your courage to its very core. Brace yourself as we unravel the secrets of the Ouija board, exposing its dangerous allure and the devastating consequences that follow. Will you have the courage to listen until the very end, to face the sinister forces that await within this tale of the supernatural? Subscribe now and join us on this journey of horror, as we unveil the chilling truth behind the mystical realm of nightmare memoirs. The storm raged outside as Rachel's friends gathered in the dimly lit attic, their breaths held in a mix of anticipation and trepidation. The old wooden stairs creaked under their weight as they ascended, each step echoing through the stillness of the house. Shadows danced on the walls, cast by the flickering candles that barely pierced the gloom. Rachel stood at the center of the attic, her eyes shining with excitement and a hint of something darker. Her voice, barely above a whisper, filled the space, promising an encounter with the unknown. She spoke of the supernatural, of spirits and ancient mysteries that lay just beyond the veil of reality. Her friends exchanged nervous glances, their skepticism mingling with a growing curiosity. They wondered if this experiment was a foolish game or a gateway to something beyond their comprehension. Hesitant, yet drawn by Rachel's conviction, they took their places around the table, their hands trembling slightly. The room fell into a heavy silence as Rachel unveiled the Ouija board, its surface adorned with intricate symbols and letters. The air felt charged with an unspoken tension as they placed their fingertips on the planchette, its smooth surface cool against their skin. Rachel's voice quivered as she initiated the ritual, her words blending with the distant thunder and the patter of rain on the attic windows. The planchette remained still, unyielding to their collective energy. Seconds turned into minutes, stretching into an eternity as they waited, their breaths held in anticipation. Then, with an almost imperceptible movement, the planchette began to glide across the board, guided by an unseen force. It moved slowly, deliberately, as if tracing the outlines of a hidden path. Each letter it touched sent shivers down their spines, for it spelled out words that carried an undeniable weight. Words of warning. As the planchette continued its eerie dance, the room grew colder, the air thick with an otherworldly presence. Shadows seemed to elongate, intertwining with the flickering candlelight, casting grotesque shapes on the walls. The friends exchanged fearful glances, their hearts pounding in their chests. Rachel's voice quivered as she asked, "Who are you?" The planchette paused, its movement halted. Then with an unsettling swiftness it moved to the letters, spelling out a name that sent a chill through their very souls. A name that held ancient echoes and whispered tales of darkness. Basilides. A name they never expected. As the storm raged outside, the group realized that they had ventured into a realm where reality and nightmares entwined. And in that moment, the seeds of doubt took root, casting a shadow over their once unbreakable friendship. Little did they know that this was just the beginning of a harrowing journey into the heart of the unknown, where the line between what is real and what is not would blur, and their lives would be forever changed. As they began to ask their first question, a shiver ran down their spines. The planchette trembled beneath their touch, its movements uncertain and hesitant. Slowly, it glided across the board, spelling out a chilling message. The words formed like whispers in the wind, barely audible but deeply unsettling. Fear crept into the hearts of the friends as they exchanged wide-eyed glances. The room felt colder, the atmosphere thick with an otherworldly presence. They couldn't shake the feeling that unseen eyes were watching their every move. With trepidation, they continued their questions, hoping for clarity but fearing the responses. The planchette gained momentum, its movements more deliberate as if guided by an unseen force. It spelled out messages that struck at the core of their deepest fears and insecurities, exposing their vulnerabilities to the merciless darkness. Rachel's skepticism wavered, her fascination now overshadowed by a growing unease. She couldn't deny the palpable shift in the room, the sinister energy that clung to their every word. The once skeptical friends exchanged nervous glances, their bonds strained by the weight of their shared terror. Outside the attic, the storm raged on, rain pounding against the windows like desperate pleas for escape. Thunder boomed in the distance, mirroring the thunderous beats of their hearts. Shadows danced along the walls, twisting and contorting in unnatural ways, as if mimicking the darkness that consumed their souls. The friends dared not speak of their mounting fears, afraid that acknowledging them would only invite further malevolence. Yet with each passing moment, the veil between the living and the dead seemed to thin, their reality merging with a realm beyond their comprehension. No longer able to deny the sinister presence within the attic, their questions grew desperate, their voices trembling. But the responses became more cryptic, more unsettling, as if the entity reveled in their fear. It seemed to possess an intelligence, a cruel intent to torment and manipulate their every thought. As they reluctantly continued the session, the planchette moved with an almost malicious purpose, spelling out a final message that sent chills down their spines. The words dripped with a malevolence that seemed to seep into their very souls, leaving them haunted by the darkness they had unwittingly unleashed. With trembling hands, they pushed the planchette away, their hearts heavy with a sense of impending doom. The attic fell into an oppressive silence, broken only by the sound of their ragged breaths. They were trapped in a nightmarish game, and the rules were set by an entity they could not comprehend. Little did they know that the whispers in the shadows were only the beginning, and the true horrors that awaited them were yet to reveal themselves in the depths of the night. The attic was cloaked in an eerie stillness as the group huddled together, their breaths shallow and hearts racing. Shadows writhed along the walls, dancing with an otherworldly grace. The air felt heavy, pregnant with an unspoken malevolence. Uneasy glances were exchanged, each friend sensing a growing presence that defied rational explanation. It started with a subtle shift, a barely perceptible movement of an object across the room. Eyes widened, heart skipped beats. Was it a trick of the mind? But then, another object rose from the floor, levitating in defiance of gravity. Whispers of disbelief and fear filled the stagnant air, their voices hushed in trepidation. The shadows deepened, swallowing the corners of the attic in a shroud of impenetrable darkness. The flickering candlelight fought to hold its ground against the encroaching void, but its feeble glow seemed to mock their growing despair. The temperature plummeted, chilling their bones and stealing their breath. A soft, disembodied laughter echoed through the attic, chilling their blood. It slithered into their ears, worming its way into their minds. Paranoia gnawed at their sanity, turning friends against each other. Trust shattered like fragile glass, replaced by suspicion and dread. The once solid bonds that held them together began to unravel, frayed by the unseen malevolence. From the corners of their vision, they glimpsed fleeting apparitions, twisted and distorted. Phantom fingers brushed against their flesh, leaving icy trails in their wake. Whispers in languages unknown whispered dark secrets into their ears, their meaning eluding comprehension yet piercing their souls with an unbearable weight. Time lost its meaning within that forsaken attic, the hours blending into an eternal night. The group huddled closer, seeking solace in their shared terror. But even in their togetherness, they felt a pervasive isolation, as if the malevolent force sought to isolate each of them within their own private hell. As the night wore on, the shadows grew bolder, lashing out with unseen tendrils. They caressed their minds, digging deep into their fears and insecurities, amplifying them to deafening levels. Each member became a puppet in the hands of the unseen entity, manipulated by their own darkest thoughts. Tears mingled with whispers of prayers, a desperate plea for escape from the clutches of the darkness. But the attic remained a prison, the malevolence refusing to release its grip. They were trapped, bound to this realm of nightmares, tormented by forces beyond their comprehension. In this dance with darkness, their spirits were tested, their very essence strained to the breaking point. Yet within their trembling hearts, a flicker of resilience burned, a glimmer of defiance against the encroaching void. They knew they had to find the strength to face the horrors that awaited them, for only by confronting their deepest fears could they hope to survive the relentless onslaught of the supernatural. Suddenly, everything fell silent. They parted without saying a word. The following days pass quite quickly, and Rachel decides to look for more information about the board. Her findings lead her to a forgotten incident from decades past, a group of friends who, like her own, had dabbled with the Ouija board. Their lives had taken a sinister turn, ending in tragedy and unsolved mysteries. Each account she unearths paints a grimmer picture, revealing the malevolent nature of the forces at work. Visions of those who had fallen victim to the board haunt Rachel's dreams. She sees their tormented faces and hears their anguished cries echoing through her mind. The weight of their suffering presses upon her, leaving her with a lingering sense of dread that permeates her every waking moment. As Rachel connects the dots between the past and the present, she discovers a common thread, a name that surfaces repeatedly in the accounts of those who have encountered the board's dark power: Basilides, an enigmatic figure associated with occult practices and forbidden knowledge. Whispers of his involvement in rituals that summoned malevolent entities become impossible to ignore. The more Rachel unravels the mystery, the more she senses a growing presence around her, as if unseen eyes are watching her every move. Shadows flicker in her peripheral vision, and cold gusts of air send shivers down her spine. She becomes acutely aware that the board's malevolence has extended its grasp beyond the attic and into her own life. Haunted by the knowledge she has uncovered, Rachel feels an overwhelming responsibility to protect her friends. Their bonds have been strained under the weight of the board's influence, but she believes that if she can expose the true nature of their tormentor, they may have a chance at redemption. But as Rachel delves deeper into the dark recesses of the occult, she teeters on the precipice of madness. Her sleepless nights and relentless pursuit of answers threaten to consume her sanity, and she questions whether she has become a puppet of the very darkness she seeks to vanquish. In the depths of her despair, Rachel finds herself standing at the threshold of a forbidden ritual, a path fraught with peril. Will she risk everything to confront the malevolent entity behind the Ouija board's influence? Or will her own quest for truth lead her down a dark and irreversible path? The answers lie just beyond her trembling fingertips, as she teeters on the edge of a revelation that will shake her to her core. Rachel found Dr. Jonathan Blackwood, a specialist in the supernatural, on the internet. She describes her story in an email, and after a few hours she receives a reply asking for her address and to convene the entire group that participated in that fateful night with her. Evening falls. Again, everyone meets in a dusty attic full of bad energy. The attic seemed colder than ever as Rachel and her friends stood in a circle, their eyes fixed on Dr. Jonathan Blackwood. The flickering candlelight cast eerie shadows on the worn floorboards, heightening the tension in the room. Dr. Blackwood's voice was steady, but his eyes betrayed a glimmer of concern. "This entity," he began, his voice echoing through the silent attic, "is not to be trifled with. It has grown powerful, feeding off your fears and weaknesses, but together we can face it." Rachel's heart pounded in her chest as she gripped the planchette tightly in her trembling hands. The air crackled with a malevolent energy, and she could sense the entity's presence lurking in the darkness, watching their every move. Dr. Blackwood continued, his voice lowering to a hushed tone. "We must focus our minds and summon our inner strength. This entity thrives on fear, so we must not give in to its manipulations. Stay strong and resolute no matter what happens." As the group closed their eyes, a deep silence settled upon the attic. Each person became acutely aware of the weight of their fears, their vulnerabilities magnified by the entity's relentless torment. Shadows danced and swirled around them, and a cold breeze whispered through the room, chilling them to their core. Rachel felt a presence creep up her spine, an invisible hand tracing icy tendrils along her skin. She clenched her teeth and dug her nails into her palms, fighting the overwhelming urge to flee. Images of her deepest fears flickered in her mind, threatening to consume her sanity. But then a voice rose within her, a voice fueled by determination and defiance. She opened her eyes, a glimmer of resilience shining through the fear. The others followed suit, their gazes meeting in a shared display of unwavering resolve. Dr. Blackwood raised his hand, holding a vial of purifying salt. He sprinkled it in a protective circle around the group, forming a barrier against the encroaching darkness. The room trembled as the entity roared in protest, its malevolence reverberating through the air. In a final act of defiance, the group clasped hands, forming a united front against the entity's onslaught. The planchette, now pulsating with an otherworldly energy, levitated above the board, spelling out words that spoke of vengeance and despair. But the group remained steadfast, their voices rising in unison, drowning out the entity's attempts to break their resolve. Their cries pierced the darkness, carrying a glimmer of hope and a resolve to reclaim their lives from the clutches of the malevolent force. Suddenly, a blinding light erupted from the center of the circle, illuminating the attic in a brilliant, cleansing glow. The entity shrieked in agony, its power waning with every passing moment. Shadows dissipated, and the oppressive atmosphere lifted, leaving behind a sense of catharsis. As the light subsided, the group slowly released their grip, their faces etched with both exhaustion and triumph. Dr. Blackwood offered a weary smile, acknowledging their strength in the face of darkness. "We have won this battle," he said, his voice filled with a mix of relief and admiration. "But remain vigilant, for the forces of darkness are ever present. Take solace in the bonds you forged, and remember the strength that lies within each of you." With those final words, the group left the attic, their steps lighter and their hearts filled with newfound courage. Though scars remained, they emerged from the harrowing confrontation forever changed, forever connected by the shared experience of facing the darkness and emerging triumphant. Little did they know, however, that the malevolent entity, though weakened, still lingered, biding its time in the shadows, waiting for an opportunity to once again ensnare unsuspecting souls. Are you prepared to embark on a haunting journey delving into the depths of nightmare memoirs? Will you dare to uncover the chilling secrets that lurk in the shadows? Join us and become a fearless seeker of all things spooky. Subscribe and like if you dare to traverse the shadowy depths with us.